In the bustling city of San Francisco, amid towering glass skyscrapers and constant technological innovation, lived a woman who seemed to have it all. At just 32, she had built an artificial intelligence company from the ground up, transforming it into a billion-dollar enterprise that revolutionized how businesses operated worldwide. Her journey began in a small apartment where she spent countless nights coding and developing her innovative AI solutions. She had always been different. While other kids played in the playground, she was fascinated by computers and the endless possibilities they offered. This natural curiosity and drive led her to graduate top of her class from Stanford, but she knew a traditional career path wasn't for her. With just $50,000 borrowed from her parents' retirement savings, she started her company in a tiny office space she shared with 3 other startups. The early days were grueling. Sleeping on an office couch, surviving on instant noodles, and pitching to investors who often dismissed her ideas because of her age and gender. But her determination never wavered. Her breakthrough came when a major retail chain implemented her AI solution, resulting in a 40% increase in their operational efficiency. The success story spread like wildfire through Silicon Valley, and suddenly, the investors who had once shown her the door were lining up outside her office. As her company grew, so did the demands on her time. The once passionate woman who enjoyed Sunday brunches with her family and weekend hikes with her husband became a stranger to her own home. Her phone was always ringing, her laptop always open, and her mind constantly racing with new ideas and solutions to business challenges. Her husband tried to understand at first. He would leave dinner in the microwave, send Carrie messages throughout the day, and try to plan weekend getaways. But how do you maintain a relationship with someone who's physically present but mentally absent? Their conversations became shorter, the silences longer, and the distance between them grew until it became insurmountable. Their young daughter, just 6 years old, drew pictures of their family with mommy always holding a laptop or phone. During parent-teacher meetings, which her husband usually attended alone, teachers would mention how their daughter would talk about missing her mother's bedtime stories and good morning hugs. The breaking point came during their 7th wedding anniversary. Her husband had planned a surprise dinner at their favorite restaurant, the same place where they had their first date. But an emergency board meeting came up, and she chose to attend it instead. That night, when she finally came home, she found a note on their bed. He couldn't do it anymore, he wrote. Their daughter needed a present parent, and he needed a partner, not just a roommate who occasionally shared their living space. The divorce proceedings were quick and amicable on the surface, but the pain ran deep. She threw herself even more into her work, expanding the company globally, making headlines with groundbreaking innovations, and adding more zeros to her bank account. From the outside, she was living the American dream, a self-made billionaire, a tech visionary, a woman who had shattered multiple glass ceilings. But in the quiet moments, when the last employee had left the office and the city lights twinkled through her corner office window, she would look at the family photos still saved on her phone. The smiles, the laughter, the simple joy of being together, all sacrificed at the altar of ambition. Her daughter's gap-toothed grin in those photos seemed to ask a question she had been avoiding. Was it worth it? Life had a way of forcing answers to difficult questions. One seemingly ordinary Tuesday afternoon, as she prepared to present their latest quarterly results to the board, her assistant rushed in with news that would shake the foundations of her carefully constructed world. Her daughter had been in an accident at school. Standing in that boardroom, surrounded by expectant faces and ambitious plans, she faced a choice that would define not just her future, but her understanding of what success truly meant. As she looked at the concerned faces around the table, for the first time in years, the decision was crystal clear. The next few hours would change everything, forcing her to confront the true cost of her single-minded pursuit of professional success. The woman who had always prided herself on having solutions to every business problem was about to learn her toughest lesson yet. Sometimes the biggest achievements in life have nothing to do with business at all. Racing through the hospital corridors, her heels clicking against the polished floor, she found herself in a place far removed from her usual world of boardrooms and business meetings. The sterile white walls and antiseptic smell were a stark contrast to the sleek glass and steel of her corporate office. Her daughter had fallen during a school sports event, resulting in a serious head injury. Seeing her little girl lying in the hospital bed, looking so small and vulnerable among the beeping machines, hit her with the force of a physical blow. The doctors explained that while the injury wasn't life-threatening, recovery would take time and require constant care and support. Sitting beside the hospital bed, holding her daughter's tiny hand, memories flooded back, first steps missed because of investor meetings, school plays watched through hurriedly recorded videos, bedtime stories replaced by late-night conference calls. Her ex-husband arrived shortly after, worry etched on his face. The awkward tension between them dissolved in their shared concern for their child. As days turned into weeks, she found herself doing something she hadn't done in years, simply being present. Her laptop remained closed more often than not, and her phone stopped being an extension of her hand. Instead, she learned to appreciate the small moments, helping her daughter with simple tasks, sharing jokes that made no sense but brought genuine laughter, and really listening when her child spoke about her dreams and fears. The pediatric doctor who treated her daughter became an unexpected source of wisdom. Unlike the yes men she was surrounded by in her corporate life, he spoke frankly about the importance of balance. "I've seen too many successful people realize too late that they've missed out on life's most precious moments," he said during one of their conversations. His words struck a chord deep within her. Her company's board members were initially understanding, but as weeks passed, pressure mounted for her return. Conference calls and video meetings could only accomplish so much. The old her would have immediately rushed back, but something had shifted. Watching her daughter's determined efforts in physical therapy sessions taught her more about courage and perseverance than any business venture ever had. One afternoon, while her daughter napped, she found herself in the hospital's coffee shop, tears silently falling into her untouched coffee. A kind-faced nurse sat down across from her, offering a tissue and a listening ear. "You know," the nurse said gently, "I've worked here for 20 years, and I've never seen anyone on their deathbed wish they'd spent more time at the office." That conversation became a turning point. She began to see how her single-minded pursuit of success had created a void in both her life and her daughter's. The wealth she'd accumulated couldn't buy back missed moments or heal emotional scars. Her daughter needed more than just financial security. She needed a mother who was truly present. During those hospital weeks, she also observed other families in the pediatric ward. Some parents juggled work and hospital visits with grace, while others struggled with the balance. She saw how some companies supported their employees during family crises, while others added to their stress. These observations planted the seeds of what would become a revolutionary change in her own company's culture. Her executive team was surprised when she began joining their daily updates via video call from the hospital room, her daughter's artwork visible in the background. Even more surprising was her new perspective on work-life balance. The woman who once expected 80-hour work weeks from her employees now spoke about the importance of family time and mental health. One evening, as she helped her daughter with her physical therapy exercises, her little girl looked up at her and said, "I like having you here, Mom." Those simple words carried more weight than any business accolade she ever received. They validated what she was beginning to understand. Success without connection was ultimately meaningless. The wake-up call came with a heavy price, but it opened her eyes to what truly mattered. As her daughter grew stronger each day, so did her resolve to create a different kind of success story, one that wouldn't require choosing between professional achievement and personal fulfillment. This period in the hospital became more than just a pause in her busy life. It was a complete reset of her priorities and perspectives. The businesswoman who had once measured success in profit margins and market share was learning to measure it in moments of connection and genuine smiles. Little did she know that this transformation would not only change her personal life, but would also lead to one of the most innovative and successful periods in her company's history. But that's a story for another chapter. During her daughter's recovery at the hospital, life had a way of bringing unexpected connections. The pediatric doctor who had been treating her daughter wasn't just skilled at his job. He brought a unique perspective that resonated deeply with her. A single father himself, he understood the delicate balance between a demanding career and parenthood. Their conversations often happened during quiet moments in the hospital corridors or over quick cups of coffee in the cafeteria. He shared stories about raising his son while building his medical career, speaking with honesty about both his successes and failures. Unlike the polished, calculated interactions she was used to in the business world, these talks felt refreshingly real. One evening, as they discussed the challenges of single parenthood, he mentioned something that stuck with her. "You know," he said, watching a group of residents rush past, "medicine taught me that every second we spend focused on something is a second we're choosing not to spend somewhere else. The trick isn't to do everything perfectly, it's to be present in the moments that matter most." Their friendship grew naturally, built on shared experiences and mutual understanding. He didn't try to impress her with knowledge of her business achievements, and she found herself drawn to his humble dedication to helping others. In him, she saw someone who had found a way to excel in his career while maintaining his humanity and connections. The hospital became an unexpected classroom for life lessons. She observed how the doctor interacted with his team, showing firm leadership while maintaining compassion. During rounds, he knew not just his patients' medical histories, but also their favorite books or latest school achievements. It was a different kind of success than what she had known, one measured in smiles and healing rather than profit margins. As her daughter's condition improved, their conversations expanded beyond medical updates. They discussed everything from the latest medical research to favorite hiking trails in the area. He told her about his son's soccer games and his own journey from a small-town clinic to becoming a leading pediatric surgeon. She shared stories about building her company and her growing realization about what she'd sacrificed along the way. Other hospital staff noticed their connection. The nurses would smile knowingly when they saw them talking in the garden during breaks, and even her daughter picked up on the special friendship forming. "He makes you laugh, Mom," she observed one day. "You never used to laugh like that before." The doctor introduced her to his son during one of his visits to the hospital. Watching him balance being both a caring father and a respected professional opened her eyes to new possibilities. It wasn't about choosing between career and family, it was about finding harmony between the two. Their relationship evolved slowly, built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. He showed her that vulnerability wasn't weakness, and that asking for help wasn't failure. When she expressed guilt about past choices, he helped her see that the past couldn't be changed, but the future was still unwritten. During a particularly difficult day when her daughter was struggling with therapy, he sat with her in the quiet of his office. "You know what I've learned?" He said, "Life's biggest challenges often lead to its greatest gifts. Sometimes we need to be shaken out of our comfort zone to find what we're really looking for." As weeks passed, she found herself looking forward to their conversations, not just about her daughter's progress, but about life, dreams, and the future. He became someone she could be honest with about her fears and hopes, both for her daughter's recovery and for the changes she wanted to make in her life. Through their growing connection, she began to see success differently. It wasn't just about achievement or recognition anymore, it was about creating a life rich in meaningful relationships and genuine moments of joy. The doctor showed her that it was possible to be both successful and present, ambitious and compassionate. Their bond strengthened through shared experiences and parallel journeys. Both knew the weight of major responsibilities, the challenges of single parenthood, and the desire to make a positive impact in the world. But more importantly, they understood the value of genuine connection in a world that often prioritized surface-level success. This unexpected friendship was beginning to show her a new way forward, one where professional success and personal fulfillment could coexist. As her daughter grew stronger and their connection deepened, she realized that sometimes life's greatest gifts come disguised as its biggest challenges. Little did she know that this new understanding would soon be tested in ways she couldn't imagine, as corporate challenges loomed on the horizon. But for now, she was learning to appreciate the simple joy of being present in the moment, whether in a hospital room or a quiet conversation with someone who understood her journey. Returning to her company after weeks at the hospital, she walked into the gleaming headquarters with new eyes. The pristine glass walls and sleek design that once filled her with pride now felt somehow empty. She noticed things she overlooked before: the tired faces of employees working late, family photos on desks featuring events they'd probably missed, and the constant buzz of stress in the air. During her first executive meeting back, she listened more than she spoke. Her team presented reports about declining employee satisfaction, increasing turnover rates, and burnout concerns. In the past, she might have dismissed these as necessary sacrifices for success. Now, she had echoes of her own story in every statistic. "We need to change," she announced, interrupting a presentation about maximizing productivity. The room fell silent. "I've been thinking about what makes a truly successful company. It's not just profit margins or market share. It's the people who make it all possible." Her proposal was bold: flexible working hours, comprehensive parental leave, on-site childcare facilities, and mental health support. The CFO's face turned pale at the projected costs. Shareholders would revolt, some warned. Others argued it would destroy the company's competitive edge. But she stood firm, sharing her own story of how prioritizing work over everything else had cost her what mattered most. The transformation wasn't easy. Some board members resisted fiercely, arguing that such soft policies would weaken the company's position. During one particularly heated meeting, a senior executive slammed his fist on the table, declaring, "We're running a business, not a charity." She calmly replied, "We're building a future, not just a bottom line." Implementation brought its own challenges. Creating a new company culture meant changing deeply ingrained habits. She led by example, leaving work at reasonable hours and making it clear that emails could wait until morning. When she attended her daughter's school play, she posted about it on the company's internal network, encouraging others to share their own family moments. The on-site childcare center was her favorite project. Converted from an underused conference space, it filled the building with the sounds of children's laughter. Employees could visit their kids during lunch breaks, and the sight of parents reading stories or sharing quick hugs became common in the corridors. Not everyone adapted well to the changes. Some managers struggled with managing remote teams, while others couldn't shake their old mindset about face time equaling productivity. She invested in training programs, bringing in experts to teach new leadership skills focused on outcomes rather than hours worked. The media caught wind of the changes. Business publications criticized her approach, calling it naive and unsustainable. Competitors whispered that she'd gone soft. But she remembered what the doctor had taught her about measuring success differently and stayed her course. Then something unexpected happened. As weeks turned into months, productivity began to rise. Employee turnover dropped dramatically. The company started attracting top talent who were drawn to its family-friendly culture. People worked more efficiently during their hours because they weren't exhausted and stressed. Innovation flourished in this new environment. Teams collaborated better when they weren't competing over who could stay latest. A junior developer, able to work flexible hours while caring for her elderly mother, created a breakthrough algorithm that opened up new market opportunities. The quarterly results surprised everyone except her. Revenue was up, costs were down, and employee satisfaction scores had reached record highs. During a board meeting, even her biggest critics had to admit that the new approach was working. People do their best work when they're not forced to choose between their job and their life, she explained. Her phone buzzed during that meeting. A text from the doctor with a photo of their kids playing together at the park. She smiled, remembering how far she'd come from the person who would have ignored such a message. Looking around the boardroom, she saw nodding heads and thoughtful expressions. They were beginning to understand what she had learned the hard way. The company's transformation became a case study in business schools. Other CEOs started calling, asking for advice on implementing similar changes. She always told them the same thing: start by remembering that every employee is someone's parent, child, or partner. Build your company around that truth. As the sun set over the city skyline, she stood in her office, watching employees leave at reasonable hours, carrying stories of their day to share with loved ones. The building hummed with a different kind of energy now, not the frantic pace of before, but something more sustainable, more human. She picked up her own bag, heading out to meet her daughter and the doctor for dinner. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, she was exactly where she needed to be. The company wasn't just surviving with its new policies, it was thriving, proving that success didn't have to come at the cost of humanity. Spring brought a new energy to both her personal and professional life. Her daughter, now fully recovered, had blossomed into a more confident child, thriving in school and making new friends. The evening routine they'd established became sacred. homework at the kitchen table, cooking dinner together, and sharing stories about their day without the constant interruption of work calls. The doctor had become a steady presence in their lives, often joining them for these family dinners. His son and her daughter had formed their own special friendship, bonding over their shared love of science and terrible puns. Watching them laugh together over inside jokes made her heart full in a way that no business success ever had. She learned to delegate at work, trusting her team to handle matters that she once would have micromanaged. This trust transformed her leadership style. Instead of staying late to review every detail, she focused on mentoring her employees, helping them grow both professionally and personally. One evening, while helping her daughter with a science project about butterflies, she had an epiphany about transformation. "You know," she said, watching her daughter carefully color a chrysalis, "sometimes the biggest changes in life happen so slowly you barely notice them, but one day you wake up and everything is different." Her relationship with her ex-husband had improved too. They could now have civil conversations about their daughter's needs without the old tension. He even commented on the positive changes he'd noticed in both of them. "She talks about you differently now," he said during a parent-teacher conference. "She's proud of having a mom who makes time for her." The doctor taught her to appreciate simple pleasures, weekend hikes, impromptu picnics in the park, or just sitting quietly together watching the sunset. He showed her how to be present in moments without trying to control them. Life's best memories, he often said, are rarely planned. Their weekend adventures became legendary among their kids, whether it was exploring tide pools at the beach, visiting a local farm, or attempting to bake complicated recipes. With hilariously mixed results, every activity brought them closer together. These were the kinds of memories she had missed creating in her previous life of constant work. Her daughter's bedroom walls now displayed not just academic achievements, but also family photos, art projects, and ticket stubs from their various outings. Each item told a story of time spent together, of laughter shared, of bonds strengthened. The corporate awards that once dominated her office seemed less important in comparison. The healing process wasn't always smooth. There were still moments of guilt about the past, times when old workaholic habits tried to resurface. But she had learned to recognize these patterns and had developed healthier ways to cope. Sometimes this meant a long walk with the doctor, other times a cuddle session with her daughter and a good book. Her company's family-friendly policies had unexpected ripple effects in her personal life. Having an on-site daycare meant she could have lunch with her daughter occasionally. These precious midday breaks, filled with giggles and stories, energized her more than any power meeting ever had. The doctor's steady presence helped her navigate this new balance. He understood the pressures of a demanding career, but also the importance of being there for family. Their conversations often turned to finding ways to combine their passions with their personal lives, supporting each other's goals while maintaining their connection. One rainy Sunday afternoon, as they all worked on a massive puzzle together, she realized something profound. Success wasn't about choosing between work and family, it was about creating a life where both could coexist harmoniously. The sound of her daughter's laughter mixing with the doctor's warm chuckle was worth more than any business deal. She started keeping a gratitude journal, something she would have dismissed as frivolous in her previous life. Each entry reflected the small moments that now meant everything. Her daughter's proud smile after mastering a difficult math problem, a quiet evening walk with the doctor, family game nights that ended in silly dance competitions. Their little blended family unit grew stronger with each passing day. The kids developed their own traditions, like making pancakes every Saturday morning or having weekly science experiment sessions, sometimes with messy but memorable results. These simple routines created a stability that both children thrived on. As spring turned to summer, she found herself more relaxed, more present, more alive than she'd ever been. The woman who once measured her worth in stock prices and market shares now found joy in helping with homework, planning family outings, and building meaningful relationships. The peace she had found in her newly balanced life was suddenly shaken one Monday morning. Her assistant rushed into her office, face pale, clutching a tablet displaying breaking news. A major tech conglomerate had quietly been buying up shares of her company, preparing for a hostile takeover. The old her would have immediately cancelled all personal plans, set up a war room, and worked around the clock to fight back. Instead, she took a deep breath and called her daughter's school to let them know she'd still be there for the afternoon science fair. Then she gathered her executive team. "They think we're vulnerable because of our new policies," her CFO explained, pointing to charts showing the competitors' aggressive market moves. "They're telling investors that our family-friendly approach makes us weak, that we've lost our competitive edge." The pressure mounted as stock prices began to fluctuate. Board members who had reluctantly accepted her changes now questioned her leadership. Some suggested rolling back the family-friendly policies to appear more serious to investors. Late one night, the doctor found her sitting in her home office, surrounded by financial reports. "Remember why you made these changes," he said softly, placing a cup of tea beside her. "Sometimes the biggest battles aren't won by fighting harder, but by staying true to what you believe in." His words reminded her of how far she'd come and what really mattered. Instead of falling back into old patterns, she approached the crisis differently. She called a company-wide meeting, not to discuss strategy but to listen. Employees shared stories about how the new policies had changed their lives, better relationships with their children, improved mental health, increased creativity and productivity. One software engineer spoke about how flexible hours allowed him to care for his elderly mother while still delivering his best work. A marketing director shared how the on-site daycare meant she could continue her career after becoming a single parent. These weren't just workplace policies, they were lifelines that had transformed people's lives. She took these stories public, launching a campaign that showcased the human side of her company. Videos of employees sharing their experiences went viral. The on-site daycare became a symbol of progressive workplace culture. Industry leaders and human resource experts began speaking out in support of her approach. The hostile takeover attempt had an unexpected effect. It united the company like never before. Employees voluntarily worked extra hours, not because they were forced to, but because they believed in what they were protecting. Innovation flourished as teams collaborated across departments to strengthen the company's position. Through it all, she maintained her commitment to family time. Her daughter still saw her every evening, and weekend adventures with the doctor and their kids continued. This visible demonstration of work-life balance became part of the company's strength, not its weakness. The crisis reached its peak during a crucial shareholder meeting. The competing CEO presented charts and graphs arguing for traditional corporate values. When it was her turn to speak, she took a different approach. She shared photos of the company daycare, stories of employees excelling while maintaining family connections, and data showing improved productivity and reduced turnover. "We're not just building a company," she told the shareholders. "We're building a future where success doesn't require sacrifice. Our strength comes from understanding that happy, balanced employees create better results than burned-out ones." The room fell silent when she revealed the latest quarterly results. Profits had increased by 40% since implementing the family-friendly policies. Employee retention was at an all-time high, and the company's reputation had attracted top talent from competitors. The takeover attempt failed spectacularly. The competing CEO was forced to admit that their traditional approach might be outdated. Several of their key employees even jumped ship to join her company, drawn by the promise of a more balanced life. In the aftermath, she sat in her garden with the doctor and their kids, watching them play a chaotic game of their own invention. "You know what's funny?" she said to him. "They thought caring about families made us weak, but it turned out to be our greatest strength." The crisis had taught her something valuable. True success wasn't just about surviving challenges, but about staying true to your values while facing them. The company emerged stronger, not despite its family-friendly policies, but because of them. The final chapter of her journey began on a crisp autumn morning. The garden of her home was transformed into an intimate wedding venue, with fairy lights twinkling in the trees and flowers everywhere. Her daughter, beaming with pride, stood beside her as the maid of honor, while the doctor's son carried the rings. The ceremony was everything she never knew she wanted: simple, heartfelt, and surrounded by the people who mattered most. When the doctor took her hands in his and spoke his vows, she realized that true wealth wasn't measured in bank accounts, but in moments like these. Their honeymoon was a family trip to a beach house, where they spent days building sandcastles, collecting seashells, and watching sunsets together. The kids dubbed themselves official vacation photographers, taking hilariously candid photos of their parents being completely silly and carefree. Back at work, her company had become a case study in successful corporate transformation. Business schools invited her to speak, but she always made sure these engagements didn't interfere with family dinner time. Her talks weren't about profit margins or market strategy. They focused on building companies that enriched lives rather than depleted them. The biggest surprise came when she was nominated for Businessperson of the Year. The ceremony was scheduled for her daughter's school play night, and without hesitation, she asked to move her acceptance speech to an earlier time slot. The organizers were surprised, but she stood firm. "Success means nothing if we sacrifice what matters most to achieve it," she explained. Her acceptance speech that evening broke from tradition. Instead of talking about business achievements, she spoke about transformation, both personal and professional. She shared how a crisis had taught her that true leadership meant creating spaces where people could thrive as whole human beings, not just workers. "We've been taught that success requires sacrifice," she told the audience. "That we must choose between career and family, between achievement and joy. But what if that's wrong? What if the greatest success comes from refusing to make that choice?" The crowd fell silent as she continued, "I stand here today not as a CEO who built a billion-dollar company, but as a mother who learned to be present for her daughter, as a wife who found love by learning to value connection over competition, and as a leader who discovered that compassion is the strongest foundation for success." After the ceremony, she rushed to her daughter's school just in time to see the second act of the play. Sitting next to her husband, watching their children on stage, she felt a completeness that no business achievement could match. That night, as their blended family celebrated both her award and the kids' performance over ice cream sundaes at their favorite diner, she looked around the table and saw her real success story. Her daughter was animatedly describing her role in the play, while her stepson added sound effects, and her husband watched them all with loving amusement. The next morning, she added something new to her office, not another award, but a family photo from their ice cream celebration, complete with messy faces and genuine smiles. It sat right next to her computer, reminding her daily of what real success looked like. Her company continued to grow, but now it grew in a way that nurtured rather than depleted. The office culture she had built became known as the future of work, with other companies seeking to replicate her model. But she knew the real secret wasn't in the policies, it was in the understanding that work should support life, not consume it. Years later, when asked about her greatest achievement, she never mentioned the billions her company was worth or the awards on her shelf. Instead, she would talk about the morning walks with her husband, the science projects with their kids, the family game nights, and the countless small moments that made up a life well lived. Her story became more than just a tale of business success, it became a testament to the possibility of having it all, not by sacrificing one thing for another, but by redefining what all meant. She had discovered that true wealth lay not in the balance of her bank account, but in the balance of her life. And so, her journey came full circle. The woman who once measured success in profit margins now measured it in bedtime stories read, in family dinners shared, in problems solved together, and in love given and received. She had built something far more valuable than a business empire. She had built a life rich in meaning, connection, and joy. As she often told aspiring entrepreneurs, the greatest success story isn't about reaching the top alone. It's about bringing others with you and making sure the view is worth sharing when you get there.